and yet 25% of our kids in poverty, 20% of our kids in nutritional poverty, a life expectancy difference of 9 years. Healthy years life expectancy difference of 14 to 16 years. We hold these things together within the city boundary. And one of the points I make is that this inequality, the presence of this inequality is a city shame. And what we need in Bristol are the tools, the resources to be able to deal with that. It means dealing with the challenges within the city boundaries, but also the platform to be able to speak to the national policies that cut across our city. And austerity is that context that is undermining our ability to support people in their everyday lives and give them the platforms to move on. I grew up in Bristol, and I grew up dependent in many ways, you might say, on public services. But it was the timely interventions that made it possible for my mum and myself and my sister to begin to build a life. And from an unlikely start, I end up here today as Mayor of Bristol. The cold, hard reality we face at the moment is that government is requiring us to save over £100 million by 2022. £100 million. When we look at what that means in Bristol, it means not only impacting on frontline services, which we all know about and we see every day, it also means impacting on what I would call our backroom ability. I was in London just a couple of days ago talking to investors who will come and help us build the houses we've committed to building for the people of Bristol. You can't have a home, you can't have a stable community without a stable home, without a stable house. And what we talked about was one of the things that holds us up is the planning, the lawyers. These things don't sound very, very appealing. They're not things we campaign for. But just to keep the wheels of a city moving, just to keep them moving, we need the investment in local government. We need this to not, when I've talked about government policy, austerity is disinvestment in a place, disinvestment in British cities. We need investment because it's cities that have the answer, I believe, to many of the problems we face now. My national government cannot talk about identity and belonging without making me feel unconfident, without making me feel uncomfortable as a mixed race man with African heritage. When they come up with these one-dimensional ideas of Britishness. But in a city like Bristol, we talk with relish about 180 countries of origin and 92 languages. We talk about our diversity as a strength. It's at the city level that political leaders look people in the eye. It's at this level that we can have a steady stream of school kids coming into this building to demystify politics and speak to them about the diversity of background that should be taken over here. It's at this level that we can identify people to become magistrates, to make sure that we have genuine diversity and justice in our criminal justice system at the front end. Those are the things that we want to get done, and government must invest. Let me just say, this is not the end, this is a first step. The core cities have come together to produce a paper that we are taking to government next Tuesday. That's the first step. We've got a room, we'll have the cabinet, we'll have shadow cabinet, we'll have MPs and third parties. We will be saying to government, we need a new deal. We need a new kind of relationship in which you invest in cities that keep this country moving. We will go from there into party conference season. We'll ask this team to be taken into conference, and we go into budget. But let me ask you to do a few things before you leave today. One is, can I ask you, before the day is out, to take your phone and commit to texting 20 people and tell them they need to write to their MP, they need to make it clear to government that the cities need a new deal. We cannot go on as we are going. Austerity is a choice, and austerity is costing life and costing hope. It's breeding hopelessness into our city. But there are things we can do right now in Bristol also. And there are volunteers around today who are asking people to come forward. One is, what I need from people in Bristol while we take on government and while we stand up, these are some practical things. Would you volunteer to become a support reader in schools? We need 300 people to start reading with our school kids to improve literacy and improve life chances. If you would, go to the Labour stand, volunteer. Would you help us make sure that every young person in Bristol gets access to work experience? At the moment, half of young people do not get access to good quality work experience. That impacts on their whole career trajectory and impacts on social mobility. Would you join us in volunteering to go out and help people register to vote so that people's voice is genuinely heard at the next general election? Would you put your name forward to be part of a general bank of volunteers that we can call on when the next calls, whether we're running a hunger program or a homelessness program? We would welcome you considering all those things. And would you consider becoming a foster family or coming forward to adopt? We have 700 children in Bristol in the care system. You can make an intervention that changes someone's whole life chances. So we're going to do the big things about taking on government. We're going to do the big things about taking on power. But we also got to say is, what can we do right here, right now with what we've got? And we're putting those things forward. And make me make one last little request. I would love us to leave this grass cleaner than when we found it. Please let's make sure there's no litter when we leave. Thank you, and thank you for loving Bristol. You make me proud.